Canada.
Put on a suit, drink water, don't drink and drive. Hey, man, call your mother.
It means nothing. It means nothing.
Nah, they lying to you. It's about the money.
Now you're more fluent.
What is up, everybody? My name is CJ alongside Jackson and Josh, and we are from the Sidelines here every Sunday at 8 o'clock. Now that football season's among us, you can smell it in the air. The grass is cut. We're super excited. The pads are coming on tomorrow. We're really starting to get into shape. Now we have to get into shape in terms of our sports takes because the Hall of Fame game is this week, and we're ready to go. Football will be here every weekend until February, so we made it. We pretty much made it, guys. How we feeling today?
Bro, I cannot wait. I'm so surely finishing up the man cave from the bathroom to the entertainment center to the bar section. Bro, we are ready to roll. First game coming. Everything else between, we're ready for football. It's been a long time and getting a little anxious, little fidgety.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited to see my boy Omarion Hampton get maybe one or two touches in the Hall of Fame game, and then they pull him because he looks too good. So yeah, he'll be an exciting start to my preseason.
Yeah. Exciting start. Obviously the first week of training camp. Obviously, there's going to be storylines. What are people saying? How do people look? How do these rookies look? How do these new signings look? I will say there's three big stories so far this week that we got to talk about, and then we can kind of go down the injury bug list, and then we could talk a little fantasy football at the end. I guess let's start off with Christian Wilkins being released from the Las Vegas Raiders, because that was kind of a big shock this week, and for some of the news to come out on June 4th that they decided to void some of the remaining $35 million of his guarantees in his deal that he's already gotten of $85 million guaranteed. Now that he will be a free agent, and now he's filing agreements with NFLPA and the Raiders to, I guess, for the reasons for him to terminate the guarantees and to release him. How you guys felt about that? That was kind of a shock. Josh, I'll start with you. Like, what do you think about the Christian Wilkins release?
Yeah, definitely a shock for sure. They definitely threw him a lot of money his way a few years back, hoping to be the anchor of the defense, the line and whatnot. And didn't watch too many Raiders games, so I'm not sure exactly how his performance was going since then. Exactly, but what things out for me is Vikings were also in the lottery to go try to bid for him in his services and whatnot, because obviously the defensive line has been a struggle a little bit outside of like Harrison Phillips and whatnot, but he can only do so much so often. You hoping to pair him two big bodies and all that. Nothing will ever be the Williams wall again with Kevin and Pat Williams with the Vikings and whatnot. But the Vikings have been searching that for a decade now. Some to solid line where you don't have to rush. The blitz guys, you can send the four up front and drop everybody else back in coverage and whatnot, and licking your chops because you got back end or front end of the defense ready to roll. And Vikings were hoping with that with him, but he chose the Raiders instead. Rightfully so. Go get your money, go get your bag. So hopefully dude gets to go where he wants to play. Unfortunately got cut at the end of the day. No wonder how much you're getting paid. It sucks to get fired regardless.
Yeah, the voiding of the contract is interesting, right? Because voiding, I think, means that like they are not planning on paying him because of a rule contingency. NFLPA leans in favor of the players. I have a feeling his appeal may not bring all of the guaranteed money to him, but he'll get a nice paycheck out of it. The Raiders aren't going to be able to cut him for free. And then, yeah, I mean, what is the status on his injury? I know that their claim was that he didn't take his rehab seriously. So what does his timeline look like right now? That's something I haven't looked into.
So the latest with the Christian Wilkins thing, there's the two parts to this. The first part is with the injury is that he had a Jones fracture, and he got surgery for it, right? And then it wasn't really healing the way they wanted. So the doctors recommended him to do another surgery, and he didn't want to do a second surgery, so he wanted to try a different route. And so it was kind of like from that report, it sounds like he wanted to maybe just keep giving it time to rehab it, and it'll get back to where it needs to go. But the team was recommending him do another surgery for the foot, and he hasn't done it. It's kind of similar to the what is his name? I can't think of his name. Former Saints wide receiver. He had a foot injury, but waited until like way too late to get surgery done, and wound up missing a lot of games. So instead of like getting it done early in the offseason.
Sounds like something Michael Thomas would do. But
Michael Thomas, thank you. That's exactly what it was. So it's kind of similar to that situation. But then there's also another report that came out that no one's leaking it, but like he's been alleged to do some really weird things in the locker room. And I don't know how truthful it is. There, obviously, Christian Wilkins does have a bit of a reputation around the league, especially what he did at Clemson as well. So there's that is a stray report. I don't know how valid that is, but if obviously new regime, new everything this offseason, and they didn't sign him. I mean, he only signed just last year, right? So like they didn't bring him in. Like obviously they would like to have his presence there alongside Max Crosby. That would have been a really formidable defensive line. But if they're not gelling into that Pete Carroll locker room, then maybe it's just easier to cut your losses now.
Yeah, totally. I'd be interested to see where he goes. Like if he has a chance of returning this season and someone's going to employ his services. We were just talking before the show about how bad the Panthers defense is. He's from the Carolinas. So, we've been known to sign guys that are questionable characters as well. Maybe not on the weirdness standpoint, but, we've brought in worse. So we'll have to see.
That'd be a good signing. I can see him going back to, Miami, because Miami doesn't really care, or they just operate in different, stratosphere as well.
Yeah, they just oh my gosh, the tight end
Waller.
Yeah, Darren Waller. Yeah, they just brought in Darren Waller, who is anything but an easy presence in the locker room. So
yeah, I mean, almost like I would say a trade, but that'd be another former Raider going back to Miami. So yeah, insane. So we'll see. Obviously, if he's healthy enough, I think he can contribute to any team this season. But obviously, if his foot is still not 100%, there's probably no guarantee that he will be playing or playing anytime soon. So we'll keep an eye on that story. Another big story that we saw this week was the Justin Fields was carted off the field today, and then wound up, he just kind of like, limped off, sat in the front seat of the cart, and drove up to the facility. Was reported as a dislocated toe. That wasn't the big toe, was the small. Not identify what the toe he actually did dislocate, but he was back in practice the next day. A lot of Jets fans were definitely on the edge of their seats, feeling like they were cursed, and maybe so. Jackson, how do you feel about the Justin Fields and the New York Jets with this scare?
Yeah, very odd how they presented it. All the media sources that reported on it said Justin Fields carted off with an apparent lower leg injury. Not even foot, lower leg is what they said. Yeah. When you hear carted off and lower leg, you're like, is it Achilles, ACL? How many months is Justin Fields out? Is he going to play this year? Right. And the Jets are, of course, screaming curse, which they've got every reason in the book to feel that way. I mean, we saw how Aaron Rodgers' first game went with them. And yeah, I mean, I was bummed for him. I was kind of excited for the Justin Fields experiment, so I still am excited to see kind of how that goes. You hate to see that from a quarterback like Fields that benefits so much from his athleticism and his mobility. You want him to be able to create plays on his feet, because I don't think that his pocket passing ability is at a high enough caliber to for him to just sit back with a hurt toe and all that. So I don't know what the injury timeline on a dislocated toe is. I imagine you do need some time for it to heal and mend properly. But I would imagine he's ready by the beginning of the season, and he's the clear-cut guy there. Tyrod Taylor is, a journeyman backup, but a solid one. So I don't think the Jets are really suffering that much if if Tyrod has to step in for a game or two.
Josh.
Oh yeah, so I just looked it up now. It looks about dislocated toe on average 3 to 6 weeks recovery time wise. So kind of sucks. That's kind of the duration of preseason. And as him being first year with the team, those are missed reps and opportunities to build that chemistry with everything from offensive line, time with your running back, handing him off, and learn the speed and how fast the running routes with the receivers and whatnot. So that's going to kind of hinder them and probably set them back. I'll see injury wise for him, but build that chemistry, in which leads the game's being a one essentially to boil it down. It kind of sucks either way, regardless. He's a good athlete and whatnot, but with the lack of context when it first came out, saying like lower leg injury, carted off and whatnot, kind of big gray area one almost reminded me, back to the Vikings with Teddy Bridgewater, where all of a sudden, similar report where they went down with a lower leg injury and they didn't specify what and carted off. And a little more extreme where players were saying they're crying or about to throw up because I was so gnarly, untouched injury and whatnot, which can be kind of scary. So maybe some minds like Viking fans might think that absolute worst because we're history or curse. Never won a Super Bowl or anything yet, and it's kind of holding on. So I get the whole Jets fans screaming curse and whatnot, everything else in between. So definitely feel for the dude. Hopefully recovery sooner than later. Hopefully they get the ball rolling and show what Jets football is really all about. And they've been waiting for that since 2009, 2010ish time when they were last decent. But that's my take on that.
I think the 6 week period is taking them to week 2. If the Jets are smart here, you just rest Justin Fields longer than necessary, right? I mean, you play on MetLife where people just get hurt. So maybe let Tyrod start week 1 and then let him into week 2, unless he's screamingly healthy and there's no reason not to play him.
Who their opponents this year?
Who do they play week 1 would be an important question.
So actually, I just looked it up. Justin Fields, he seems to be back practicing because there's video of him on the 26th throwing a dot to Mason Taylor. So there's obviously it was very weird. He got stepped on, is what the report was as well. And then I guess it maybe it wasn't as severe as they thought it was, but there's a video of him jumping side to side the day after practice and signing an autograph for a kid running over to him. So I don't know what this debacle was, but it seems like he's okay.
Good to know. Dang, I could have been bad, real quick.
So, yeah, the whole media circus around it. Obviously, it's New York, right? So the New York media will do what they do. And again, like, Jack said, like the lower leg carted off. Like, it's fears for the worst. It's the buzzwords that you hear that triggers. Because obviously, that's what you normally see when things like that happen. But then the fact that it was like the 26th of yesterday, he was practicing and he was just fine, throwing a dot down to Garrett Wilson. So it's like, okay, so he's good.
Yeah, probably good to go. That's my assumption. I just looked at the schedule. The first game is against the Steelers.
Return of Aaron.
So there ain't no way, obviously, what CJ's saying now and whatnot, and seeing that the first game against Steelers want to show Aaron Rodgers what could have been, should have been. So I agree. Ain't no way he's missing. Probably still at the preseason or plays a handful of snaps just to get a feel for the game. But yeah, that's probably what's going to happen.
I think everyone's going to be watching the 4th snap of the game for Justin Fields just to make sure he makes it past it, just so they can kind of get a little bit further past what they did last regime with Aaron Rodgers.
Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, well, hopefully this is just something they can just, take a deep breath and keep moving on. Because, I mean, obviously the quarterback situation needs to be solved. Like, Jets obviously just re-signed their two, you could say stud first round picks from a few years ago with Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson, both getting $30 million a year. So obviously, if everything does go well for the Jets, Justin Fields should be at the pay window, ready to go. And, because I wouldn't want to play another year under a $20 million deal. If you ball out with your old college teammate, I would be ready to get $40 million at least, and secure me some guaranteed money.
Forgot that they played together.
Yeah. So, they could try to just, line a bunch of old Ohio State guys to play with him and maybe make him fit and play like he did at Ohio State. That would be good. Make it a big shoe. I think that's their stadium, the shoe, right?
Yep.
So, maybe whatever you can. Play the fight song for Ohio State. Bring in Ryan Day. Like, I don't know what you got to do. Urban Meyer.
I don't know about all that. Oh, there we go. Yeah.
So, yeah. So let's move on to the diva of camp so far, and that's Jerry Jones. And, of course, Jerry Jones is going to do what Jerry Jones does to generate buzz for the Dallas Cowboys and is talk crap about his own players. I think that was kind of the most funny, bizarre, but yet on brand for the Dallas Cowboys so far in training camp, where Michael Parsons is looking for a new deal this year. And again, Jerry Jones and the Cowboys are, they are slow to pay. And Jerry Jones definitely let it be known that, hey, I just paid a quarterback I played a player $60 million a year. But he only played 2/3 of that year. And so understanding you just want to make sure that his players are going to be available. And Michael Parsons wasn't very happy about it. He's like, hey, he understood that this is what he does. It's not something that he's doing just for Micah. He waited to pay for CD, he waited to pay Dak, but obviously he had to pay more while waiting. So I guess what's the question should I ask? Should Michael Parsons just request a trade, or should he play out 2 years, don't sign a contract, and leave in free agency? Or 3 years, I guess it would be. This is last year deal, and they can franchise him twice.
I think that he's smart and he knows what this entails. Jerry's an old man. He says stuff that everyone kind of rolls their eyes at. But at the end of the day, like you said, with Dak and with CD, because they wait so long, other guys get paid and then they have to compete with the new market. So I think Micah's pretty smart here. I don't think he's as worried as some might allude. TJ's big deal, other pass rushers getting paid this offseason. It just means that he's going to get paid more handsomely. They're going to do the same thing they do every year with whatever star they're hesitating on paying. They're going to pay him the day before week 1 starts, as long as Micah stays patient, as long as he understands this is just how, for whatever reason, that organization runs, he'll get a huge payday. He's still, of the best defensive players in the NFL right now. He'll turn out just fine. I think that the worst thing that could happen is if he gets impatient and freaks out about it and starts kind of chirping back at Jerry. Because I think just like Dak and CD, they also stayed patient. They tried not to comment about it in the media and stuff like that, and they got their payday. So I'm sure those two who are on his team are telling him, just be patient, wait it out. It's just going to mean more money for you. So, yeah, I think it'll end up kind of being a non-story. It'll be the same thing they do every year with whatever star they're telling everyone they're not going to pay.
Josh?
Yeah, I guess it could really go either way. When I last saw, they weren't keeping their mouth shut that much. They were arguably being a distraction in training camp practice, where they were both him and Diggs were openly talking to all the media, whatnot, about their contract situations and the team itself. and take it upon themselves to make all those comments, whether instead of like delegating to, their agents and whatnot, or keeping it short and simple instead of like the usual casual, like, yeah, I'm just hoping I get paid. But either way, I'm so be it for my team. I'll do whatever I can to help the team. Yeah, the usual vanilla responses. But they weren't too about the respectful or whatnot, but they were definitely letting known that they're not very pleased right now. And I don't know what kind of locker room environment or how that coach is having it. Because I don't imagine other coaches in the league would let that slide, let your players pretty much hold press conferences right in the middle of practice, which is a distraction nonetheless. So I can see Jerry going either way. Well, oh wow, they're really putting the pressure on me right now because they're getting so involved with the media right now. It's kind of putting me in a bad position. Or he might like look at the other side of the coin. It's like, well, they're really just trying to be about this and head in the field and do what they need to do, proving that they earn these additional contracts, not issues with the personalities. Looks like, yeah, I might just let them walk, or I might cut them, trade them, whatever else in between. Like Jack, like you say, you never know what the older people tend to say and whatnot. It's kind of something that you kind of roll your eyes and kind of sigh about, like, what are they talking? What are you doing? Sort of concept. So I guess Jerry can go really either way with what they're doing.
Micah does like to talk, man. He likes his podcasts and stuff. So I think that's the most dangerous piece of it. If you could just lay low for the next month until the season kicks off, then you're golden. Cut the podcast. Don't talk too much about it. Just hunker down and be about your craft, and you're gonna get a ton of money.
That actually was going to be my next question is, does Micah Parsons podcast too much? Obviously, there was the argument on Twitter earlier this offseason where I believe Armstrong or Lawrence, I think he signed with the Seattle Seahawks, and then he said, hey, like, I'm going to go over here, go chase a championship while you over there go podcasting in Dallas. So is it possible that maybe Micah Parsons podcast too much and his podcast could be a distraction for the Dallas Cowboys? Because, I mean, if you want to compare it to what is his name? Green from the Golden State Warriors.
Oh, Draymond
Green. How he also podcasts, and he podcasts in season, same as Podcast P. They call it Paul George in the NBA. Do you think Micah Parsons is maybe creating a target or unwanted, pressure on himself by podcasting in season?
I kind of like the player perspectives, like I like when a player can be themselves, show their personality, talk about the inner workings of their league too. You gotta, as a fan, get to see a different perspective than your own as how the league is operated from an inside perspective. I don't love the crowd that really hushes them. Obviously Micah will get on the mic and say some of the dumbest things I've ever heard, and in that regard, yeah, he could probably shape up his position on certain things a little bit better. But I think if you're like, oh yeah, players shouldn't be podcasting during the season, or especially when they talk about the pretty important NFLPA arguments and stuff like that, where they advocate for things in their league, so I've seen some takes on Twitter that are fairly close to the shut up and dribble take, and that's where it goes too far. It's really fun to see what the players have to say and how they share their experiences in the league. And if players were discouraged from podcasting, we wouldn't have the Jeff Teague podcast. And that is the most entertaining one of them all.
Yeah, no, I feel that for sure. I mean, like what Jack said, it's nice when players, show their personalities and talk who they want to talk how they want to talk, and just kind of be themselves. Can't always be out in public, so they can do it in the comfort of their own home and their own way of social media. So I mean, mostly I support him being a podcast. To when he wants to voice his opinion, whether his or from the Sideline podcast, either way, I think it'd be good for him to do vocalize opinions, but at the same time, try to keep it professional. And as long as you can not be a distraction and back up what you're saying from the mic to the field, I think it's a win-win for everybody at the end of the day. I mean, sure, he brings more attention to himself, but you do play for the Cowboys, so you're getting attention regardless. So that's no matter way you cut it. I mean, as long as he hold his own, not be a distraction with a team is like, bro, what are you talking about your podcast? Why'd you say that? Why did you, X, Y, Z, and come back to fire you, bite him in the butt? So I'm supportive of the podcast. I don't think it's a distraction too much as of yet, but we'll see how it goes as it continues to frustrate to potentially build up through going over the contract and the season to come.
The wisest men say the least.
True.
That's true. So let's move on to another contract situation. Well, two parts. First part, Shamar Stewart did finally agree to his rookie scale deal, where I'm guessing they made a compromise on this clause that this void guarantees clause in his contract. So either the Bengals or Shamar Stewart, Cape, I don't know exactly which side did, but he is in camp practicing, which is good for him. And then, but also they still have another edge rusher. They still need to go. He flew back to Florida with Trey Hendrickson, and they seem to be far apart, metaphorically and physically right now as he is in Florida training for the season, not in town. So Josh, how do you feel? Do you think that this Trey Hendrickson saga will finally get over with before the season starts? Because I mean, do you think that what do you think the resolution would be?
Just pay the dude. Just pay the man. Like, look who you need him. Let's look who you going against and who you keep losing to, right? The Chiefs. Like, they're your kryptonite at the end of the day. Like, you can't get past them. And you need somebody to take care of Mahomes, and so he's not running free, like a dog off a leash. Mahomes just run around, just not the fastest guy, but he's shifty, he can accelerate super quick and slow it down. Need to make the guy miss it too. You need all the help you can get for that hump one. You got guys on a contract from Burrow to the receivers and whatnot. You got dude signing out to just get him paid. You gotta kick the can down the road so you can afford it a little more for the short term for now, because your window looks big, but at the same time it can close just like that, unless you got a better answer lined up that no one else knows about. Just sign the dude, just get him paid. Sucks like he holds out, but he knows his worth at the end of the day. His worth, to stop being stubborn. Just it's like y'all with your own practice facilities and everything else between. Like, what is it? Is it like a field like under a bridge or something like that? We all are when they're practicing, or something like that.
Across the main road to get to their practice.
Yeah, so stop being cheap. Pay the dude, then get y'all to take care of the players with a good practice facility and whatnot, and just take care of your own, and they'll take care of you.
Jackson?
Yeah, I agree with that. The Chiefs specifically, right? That's their kryptonite. That's the thing that they can't get over. The Chiefs' kryptonite last year was their poor offensive line play, right? And so if you are not actively taking advantage of having a top pass rusher on your roster that just needs a new contract, you're essentially saying that we don't think we can beat the Chiefs, and we're just not going to try, because that's the missing piece, right? You have all the offense in the world, right? The Chiefs have a formidable defense, but the Bengals should have, one of, if not the best offenses of next year, but they have no defense, and they're saying that their only shining spot defensively last year they're going to let walk, who plays the position that could, nip at the Achilles heel of the Chiefs. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It does make sense because the Bengals and they do this all the time, but Hendrickson is the piece that you need to make that happen, right? Stewart is a fantastic draft selection for them. He'll be a good player, but you need both of them. You need both of them to put the pressure on Mahomes, because they don't have the secondary or the linebacker group to compete. They need a formidable pass rush to keep quarterbacks from being comfortable in the pocket, because any quarterback who's comfortable in the pocket against the Bengals secondary is going to have a great day.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I hate to say it, but the Cincinnati Bengals are kind of a impoverished franchise, to be honest with you. Um, it's just terrible looks. I mean, when you again in the interview when they asked Joe Burrow about the contract situation, like he's tired of answering for other players, and his last answer, he was just like a big sigh. It's like, yeah, like I guess that's just not how it goes. Like just be able to take care of everybody. And I mean, honestly, it's kind of a miracle that they took care of T Higgins, which they kind of did. The contract is disgusting, to be honest with you, because they can walk away after this year and be fine and not have any money. Obviously, the hurdle that they're trying to get over between the Bengals and Henderson is the fact that the Bengals only in their contracts only guaranteed the first year of the contract, and they do a lot of signing bonuses to kind of counteract the money. But he wants what typical NFL teams do was to at least guarantee the first 3 years of the contract. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, I mean, it's not like the Bengals don't get the same amount of money that the rest of the NFL team does, at least the base salary of over $400 million from ticket revenue sales. Obviously, they probably don't get as much money from home sales, whatever else, But terrible situation in Cincinnati. Let's talk about some injuries so we can kind of figure out what's happening. And let's go to Cleveland, another impoverished franchise. Kenny Pickett is actually strained his hamstring at the end of practice today or yesterday. And so now he's dealing with the hamstring. And so does this bode well for the other 5 quarterbacks behind him? Or obviously, if you look at some of the splits of how they split up the reps, it's kind of, if you're a Shador Sanders fan, doesn't look great because Shador has been running with the 3s and 4s and the Lowe's employees, and then it's been a mixture of Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, and Dylan Gabriel mixing in with the 1s for 7-on-7 and team drills. So with Kenny Pickett possibly tweaking his hamstring and not knowing the severity of it yet, maybe not till tomorrow. Does this open the door for Dylan Gabriel to be QB1 this year, or possibly Shador can actually get some reps with the first team? How do you guys, Jackson? How do you feel about this Kenny Pickett injury and this Browns team?
I mean, I didn't love their draft strategy or their offseason strategy. I don't think that they operated well. Putting a team together, obviously the QB room is a mess. The person I feel the worst for is Kenny Pickett. This is a QB room that anyone could start week 1. Anyone could be given the keys, just kind of depending on how the preseason goes. So to have any injury, even the tiniest one, you could dislocate your toe or something, puts you back in such a tightly contested QB room. So I feel awful for him because he very well could have been the starter week 1. He could have had the preseason to show that. I don't know how severe the strain is, but usually with hamstrings, you need to err on the side of waiting a little longer to let them heal because they are the most nagging injury in the NFL. We've seen guys who deal with Keenan Allens and stuff like that seem to have a hamstring injury for the course of an entire year. I believe Cooper Kupp had it one year. Any receiver that I drafted fantasy, essentially, it is bound to have a nagging hamstring injury where week to week you don't know if they're going to play. So I would imagine with the depth they have, they'll probably be patient and allow him to rest, and that doesn't bode well for his ability to come back and start. So I feel terrible for him. This was an opportunity for him to prove himself in a new place. He went and got his ring with Philly, but there was no chance of him starting, so he wanted to go somewhere where he had another shot at proving himself as a football player. And it sounds harsh, but this very well could close that window for him. I know it's a small preseason injury, but it's such a tight contest and a lot of mouths to feed. this could have shut his window, and he might be looking for a new team or a new situation next year.
Josh?
Yeah, it does not bode well. The reports and stuff I was seeing that he was leading all the quarterbacks with holding QB1 position, and Flacco not being not far behind as he is QB2, and then seeing that Dylan Gabriel is the outcome after that, and then Sanders after that. It does not bode well, especially it is a deep room in Cleveland, nonetheless. But it does not. Yeah, as I've also suffered hamstring injuries, that it does linger. Not like is not as bad as a quarterback as you are a receiver, but nonetheless, you still got to move and plant and all over, and it's a lot of strain and potential pain on your leg. Obviously, like you said, TJ, find out the severity of it. I hope there's a minor tweak, hope there's a little bit irritated, and they're just playing it safe, knowing how fragile that a hamstring can be and how long it can hold on for. They just play it safe and have them sit a little bit. But with that being said, you have a few of the guys breathing down your neck for that position and whatnot. Some people call it a myth or not or whatever, but lose your job due to injury, that can absolutely be a thing. Some of these guys are, but the whole Bledsoe to Brady thing, as soon as Bledsoe got hurt, Brady took over and was never looking back.
Who would the Brady be in this situation?
I knew you were going to ask that question.
There ain't no Brady. There is no Brady in this situation because it's like comparing apples and oranges.
I mean, there is a TB12 athlete in their locker room.
I mean, I guess, but like, I don't know, man. I think this lasts for a while. Like going through like the preseason, I don't think he'll get that job back. Because that could easily be taken over by Joe Flacco if he shows his game management-esque enough vision to hold the throne for a little bit until another injury happens, knock on wood, or going on to next season to where Gabriel might, come in for that, position of QB1. That's what I think the outcome is, that it can't. If this lasts for a while, he's not getting that job back unless other circumstances beyond everyone's control happens. He won't get that back, and it'll be up to Flacco and Gabriel and Sanders. He better flourish and get better look real good in preseason, and show people why everyone who passed up on him for multiple rounds what they missed out on, or sheesh, thank God we didn't draft him at all, or weren't even looking at him. So as he can prove the haters or doubters or people right or wrong coming up.
I mean, they don't want to have 4 quarterbacks on their 53-man roster going into the season. This injury very well could end up with Kenny Pickett getting cut, and that's, like I said, tragic for him. But I mean, essentially what Josh is saying here is that Shador is the next Tom Brady, and that you should go ahead and place your futures.
Yeah, I think I'm excited for that because honestly, we can go around the horn real quick and give our projected week 1 starters and then week 17 starters as well, like for the Browns, because like again we've talked about this before, but like, what is there any positive to having Joe Flacco be your starting quarterback week 1? Like, if you're like, and you're like, you're trying to back and try to sell us this fool's gold as, the Browns organization is trying to do, like, how can you be excited for Joe Flacco to be your starting quarterback in the year 2025? Maybe if it was 2012 when he won a Super Bowl, yeah, like, big arm, from Delaware kid, exciting, but I just, and I honestly, like with Kenny Pickett, it kind of felt like he was honestly the one that was kind of meant to be out. Like, I would rather run it with the rookies and just tank, whatever you want to say the slogan would be for Arch Manning, right? So appalling for, Arch, I don't know, something like that. But I don't know. But my prediction probably for week 1 will be Joe Flacco, because I feel like they're just incompetent. They just want to go with the veteran to try to see if they could string something together. but my starter for Week 17 would be Dylan Gabriel.
I'd probably go with the same thing. I mean, I think there are positive aspects to Joe Flacco being the starter. It's the smartest move out of the room right now, unless training camp shows us otherwise with the rookies. But, he can still manage a game all right. Obviously, he's not an elite quarterback like he used to be. But, yeah, I mean, I think that he offers that veteran presence, that mentorship to two young rookies. I thought that, prior to the season starting that Joe would probably be the one to walk. He'd probably be the most willing, The Browns would be like, hey, man, how would you like to retire? And he might be like, all right, like whatever. I'm not going to make this roster. So, maybe I'll stick around if a team needs a quarterback midway through the season or something. So the injury to Kenny Pickett definitely changes that. But, yeah, I mean, I'd say it's probably Dylan Gabriel by the end of the season. I think that
Deshaun could possibly come back at the end.
No, they're going to keep they're going to keep that in the basement. They're going to keep they're going to try to keep that out of the limelight. Yeah, I think this Shador will start a game. Every quarterback will get their shot there. Joe will probably do what he does. He'll have a week one that'll have people buzzing. Who do they play week one? I got the schedule pulled up. Week one, they play the Bengals. So what an opportunity for Joe to light up a defense because they're not going to pay Trey. Right. He's still going to be in Florida. He'll be hanging out with me in Tampa. And then Joe Flacco will light up that defense, and they'll be talking about, are the Browns a contender, right? Like Judkins had a 100-yard game, and Judy had a 100-yard game, and is this Browns team legit? Their defense just barely outlasted the Bengals offense. They get the win week one, and they're like, is this team legit? And then a mediocre game week two. By week three, people are like, oh man, can we get another quarterback in here? I think Shador will start a game by week 10. Gabriel probably have the majority of the starts by the end of the season.
I would like to think that Shador starts, but I just think he's in an impossible situation where I feel like he is. Oh, I hate to use this analogy, but like I feel like he's just a pawn in a game, and I don't believe the value in the 5th round when you already drafted a quarterback. That's just PR nonsense. Mm-hmm. He probably will just because if the owner just comes down. But if the coaches have anything to say for it, I don't think he starts at all. Like, I don't think he gets off the practice squad, to be honest with you.
What is the consensus from camp about his performance? Like, I see that he's running with the lower groups. Is he performing poorly, or are they just running in with lower groups?
He's running with lower groups. I think he completed a lot of his passes, but a lot of his passes were checkdowns. So he's not like threading the needle. He's not getting completions. Whether that's the talent that he's with, but so it's one of those. It's a weird thing because like it's so hard to evaluate someone when you're with competition that more likely than not they won't be on the roster.
Right.
So it's like he's completing the check down. He's doing what he's supposed to do, and he's not forcing turnovers so far in practice. But at the same time, it's not like you're seeing amazing throws. Like I saw a couple touchdown throws he had in red zone that looked fine. He threw a dot in the back corner. Like he has, you see the arm talent there, right? But he's not getting much run with the one. So you don't really know what it could be. So it's like, that's why I just think, it's impossible to cycle 4. Like, it's already hard to cycle 2, but to cycle 4. And I think, obviously being a 5th round pick, the lowest person on the totem is just like, it's not going to be great. So I don't know.
He wasn't the most aggressive passer at Colorado, like he had some very consistent stats. He didn't turn the ball over a ton. And that was a huge positive of him, but that's because he wasn't pushing it like other guys, the Will Howards and the Dylan Gabriels who were slinging it. They had some turnovers that if you watch the tape, you're like, what are you thinking? But then also they made some plays where you're like, all right, that was a ballsy move. You absolutely chucked that. You Jameis Winston that, and it worked out for you because you had 5-star receivers, So Yeah, I mean, he's not an aggressive guy, and I think if he's running with the fours, it's time he started. Like take some risks. You could very well be put in QB purgatory, and be a practice squad guy. I feel somewhat bad for him. Like I think his general demeanor probably got him in this situation, but now the media already has an idea for who he is, and it's going to be pretty impossible for him to shake it unless he like cures cancer. So yeah, I feel bad for him because he's not really going to be able to run away from what people already have decided he is.
Right. Josh?
No, I get it. I think only way that he has a shot of starting one or multiple games this year is he has to flourish in these preseason games. Like he has to make the most of every opportunity, not make dumb decisions of interceptions, not take sacks that shouldn't happen. Showing to be a leader on the field because that's also in question. So that's gonna be a big thing in play as well. And now to add on to that, if during the season, no matter who they're playing, or what quarterback is under center, if everyone just crapping their pants and they're losing multiple games, like, oh, this quarterback didn't work. Oh, this quarterback didn't work. Gabriel didn't work. Shooter, let's go. Time to shine. Hope you can make it worth your while. See what you got. But unless those stars line like that, he's not playing. So you better make it better. Absolutely take hold of preseason games, and if time comes with, God forbid, multiple injuries or other circumstances, keep losing regardless. Make the best of every opportunity because you never know when your next shot might come.
Yeah, honestly, I do think the Browns are probably trying to tank, and obviously getting that second first round pick was part of that early step. So, I mean, they're not paying anybody really much money anyway outside of Deshaun Watson. But I do want to get you guys this. We can kind of liven this up before we talk a little fantasy football to wrap this up. But the big debate that was going online this week was the Cam Newton versus the Jalen Hurts conversation, where is Jalen Hurts a top 10 quarterback? And then does Cam Newton have the gall to be able to talk? Because allegedly he's only had 3 good years. So, Jackson, I'll let you get this conversation started as the resident Carolina Panthers fan.
I'm gonna let Josh start this one. I gotta go get something, so I'll let him take it off.
Okay, Josh.
Man, they're both good in their own aspects. They're similar but different the same way. I would say Newton can say what he had to say because he was the team. He didn't have to rely on great receivers, great run game, great defense to help carry the weight. Like dude was 6'5", built like a jacked linebacker, and he was the team. Like if it wasn't, I love it. I love the energy. If it wasn't for him being on the Panthers, the help him to the Super Bowl, they wouldn't have been there. They wouldn't have sniffed the playoffs. None of that. Like he was the team. All 6'5" of him, slinging the ball, running people over, hurling, doing somersaults in the end zone and whatnot. And also, can you imagine if they were trying to do the tush push back then too? If the Carolina did, his touchdowns would have been even more crazy than he would have had and whatnot. So I definitely think if you were to throw him on the Eagles a little crazy, but I figured they would never lose a game. Like he has no problem slinging the ball. He didn't always take care of the ball, and would take unnecessary sacks because he always wanted to make a play. But nonetheless, I think if I had to choose between the two, I would take Newton over him just about any day. And I think you can say what he wants to put him in the top 10 or not. I think Newton has the right to do that. He has not won a Super Bowl, but if he would have dove on that ball, that game could have changed. But that's neither here or there. So that's my take on that.
So, Josh, do you think Jalen Hurts is a top 10 quarterback?
No.
Okay. Jackson, the floor is yours.
All right. For those that are listening and not watching, I'm wearing my Cam Newton jersey, proudly so. Cam Newton I feel like on his way out of the NFL, his legacy was so tarnished, and the media will remember him for so much less than he actually was. There is such an in-depth argument that we could have started this podcast and ended it with this argument. It's been a pretty common one online recently. Um, of course, what Josh mentioned, which is probably the most important part of the argument, is the quality of touchdown runs. When you got two guys grabbing your cheeks, taking you in the end zone, you can only really respect it so much. Cam Newton was front flipping, trucking, stiff arming guys. He had 60+ yard touchdowns multiple times a year. He had respectable rushing touchdowns. The only quarterback that somewhat emulates those rushing touchdowns at times is Josh Allen, and he does not do it to the extent that Cam did, right? Cam was such a threat that defenses had no idea what to do with him, right? He was a hit from the second he made the roster. The second he was drafted by the Panthers, he immediately started off hot. He had a 400-yard game in his first game. Like he was ridiculous. He was 6'6", 260, 270, whatever he was. He was built like a tight end, but had the speed of a running back or a receiver. He was everything that you could possibly have in a dream quarterback. And the thing that I liked outside of that one fumble that he didn't jump on was that he put everything out on the field, and that's why he didn't last long. He would make those diving, jumping, reaching plays that got him hurt, right? He stayed in the pocket too long. He didn't throw the ball away, which obviously could have been improved upon, but he gave everything to win games. That's all he cared about. And he talked so much trash while he did it. He was so confident because his brand of football was in your face and you couldn't stop it. Jalen Hurts is a humble guy. He's a little quieter because he knows that he can't emulate that same game. He plays in a system, which this is my main point. He plays in a system that makes him look better than he is, right? They're a very strong rushing attack, and they have amazing talent on the outside. They have good tight ends and great receivers, right? Look at that roster, that 2015 roster that he took. His top target was Devin Funchess. That's who he was throwing it to. Devin Funchess.
Ted Ginn Jr.
Yeah, Ted Ginn Jr., who...
Jericho Cotchery?
Yes, Cotchery. And, oh, man. They had names on there that, like, you can't even... Philly Brown, that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Philly Brown was one of his receivers. Brenton Burson. Okay? These guys... Yeah. These guys are... If you name one of those guys on those NFL grids, you're going to get under 0.1%. Like if they apply to anything, because they didn't amount to anything outside of that one season with Cam, right? Most of those guys, when Cam was not on the team and if they were remaining on the roster, they were cut soon after, right? They went to other teams and they couldn't do anything, right? Anyone other than Steve Smith that left the graces, and McCaffrey that left the graces of playing with Cam did not turn out to be anything. Cam also, if we're forgetting, led an Auburn team that no other player on his offense made an NFL roster. We're forgetting that he is used to leading teams with zero talent to huge stages. He led that team not just to a college football championship, but won it. And then he led the Panthers to an NFL, to a Super Bowl, and obviously didn't win it, but he got them there on a 15-1 season with those guys. Now they had a stout defense. Obviously they still had, prime Luke Kuechly, who, backed a very talented defense with Josh Norman playing psycho ball. But Cam,
broken arm.
Yes, Thomas Davis playing with a broken arm and 4 ACL tears.
Yeah, knee.
Yeah. A defense full of psychos. They were so much fun to watch, right? But Cam took that offense that should have been nothing, right? And brought no quarterback today, not even Mahomes, is taking that group of guys and emulating that season in that year. You put Mahomes on that 2015 Panthers team, they're not going 15-1. Their only loss was to the Falcons, and they played the Falcons in the last week where they didn't need to start Cam because they already had the 1 seed locked. They played Cam and they throttled them just to prove that the one team that beat us this year, it was a fluke and we crushed them, in response, right? And, the way that the Falcons won that game was the Julio, like, mossing Luke Kuechly over his head. You had a very unfortunate, like, freak athlete receiver against a white linebacker 50 yards downfield. Like, it wasn't going to turn out well. Yeah, I'm Cam Newton all the way. Quality of touchdown runs, the talent around him, obviously a huge disparity, and then just the swagger. You want a quarterback who is that confident, who wants to play that much in your face. There were teams that said that they would hurt Cam if he danced in their end zone, and he was hitting that shit every single time. He's in the back of the end zone while that team's commiserating, just hitting his stuff. And what are they going to do? They get in his face about it, and he's just dabbing on him. He's smiling. He is smiling in the face of a 300-pound defensive lineman and dabbing on them like a kid would do because he could.
He was that damn good. And one more step to really hammer home your point about in college. Obviously, what Cam did at Auburn, right? Just imagine if he was at Florida and he never, Urban Meyer didn't have a thing to kick him off the team. But look at what Jalen Hurts did in college. He was on what team? The Alabama Crimson Tide. Again, another super team with a bunch of immaculate talent again, right? Obviously, go to the national championship and got, pulled for Tua. But then went to Oklahoma, was okay, but not great. Not as great in elite talent. So, another thing to say is that, Jalen Hurts has always been around super teams.
Yeah.
So,
it's kind of the Mark Sanchez argument, right? Sanchez came out of college having played with three of the best college receivers you possibly could. And he went to New York, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, he's the next guy up. He's he's going to be so fantastic." And I mean, he was good. I'm not going to say obviously he had his shacked in a fool moments with the butt fumble and all that. He was a good quarterback, but it was very obvious that when given an equal playing field and not having the most talented roster, that he was not as good as advertised. And so you see that from Alabama quarterbacks, right? He went to Oklahoma where, yes, they weren't fantastic, but it was because they had a bad defense. He had a bunch of studs at receiver that all went pro. They had running backs that were stud, like the offensive line. I believe 4 of them were drafted that following year. He was part of a stout team. So yeah, he's kind of always benefited from it. And he was drafted late because people were a little bit skeptical by the Eagles, which was a blessing because they didn't need him, right? I mean, he was behind Wentz. They were like, yeah, we have Wentz. We're still bought in on this, but he's kind of a backup. And then he walked into a wonderful situation where, they didn't draft Hurts because they needed a rookie who was going to take over. He just walked into a wonderful situation, and you can't hate him for it. I wish that for my favorite quarterbacks. I'm a Carolina guy. I wish that Drake May was placed into a position where they had a little bit more put around him offensively. Sam Howell was given kind of the short end of the stick because he actually played well in Washington. They still let him walk, despite them drastically improving their offense year to year. So, you wish it for any quarterback to step into what Jalen Hurts did. But I think that all that is the argument for Cam, because Cam went to that, he was drafted in 2010 to a Panthers team that, was coming off of Jake Delhomes and
Jimmy Clausen's.
That's exactly what I was going with. Jimmy Clausen's. And we even drafted Armonte Edwards from App State, who was not a D1 team at the moment, and so quickly regretted it that we pushed him to receiver, and that also did not work. So he had a team to turn all the way around and did it quickly.
Yes. So the second part of the question, Jackson, is Jalen Hurts a top 10 quarterback?
I'm going to say yes. Today, yes. Now, he's on the outer band of that 10. I don't think he's top 5. I think that, for all the reasons that I just detracted him, I think that earns him a little more hate than he deserves. He plays the game that he's tasked with doing. And I think we're kind of in a QB recession here, you know? Like I don't think that the QBs are as exciting as years of QBs were in 2000, 10 through 2018, you know? So I think that, it's not really a testament to his production and talent. It's really like who are you going to put above him? You know, there's too many guys that are so unproven.
Okay. Fantasy advice, because we're right at the tail end here. I like JSN this year. I think JSN is I think he's primed for another breakout this year. Obviously I'm a big Amari Hampton guy. I think he's going to lead the league in rushing yards. That's one of my big bets that I had. We talked about previously on the show. Brenton Strange, I think, will be a sleeper tight end for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think he's going to really emerge, and I think it's going to be fun with Liam Cohen's offense. It could be a Nick Chubb resurgence year if you want to stash him late. Now that Joe Mixon is, that's something we should talk about earlier. But Joe Mixon is dealing with injury that he might be lingering on to possibly the beginning of the regular season.
And Damian Pierce is hurt too.
I'm so glad I traded him. I traded him for a first-round pick while he still had his dominant rookie year. That was the fleece of the century.
Yeah, lucked out because I think a lot of people thought he was kind of up next. And I very well think that Nick Chubb could have a great year this year. It's just on his durability, right? He does get injured. So if he can be durable in that Texans offense, they've already shown that, they can do it with Joe Mixon and create a ton of production out of him. So yeah, Nick Chubb way late in the draft, especially for those who are listening who don't have the context. My company draft is this Thursday, and we have 18 managers in the league. So Nick Chubb will be someone's starting running back.
Have you guys done the lottery yet? Like who gets which pick yet?
Nope. I'm managing the league, and I will randomize the order 24 hours before the draft. So you have 24 hours. I don't like it 1 hour because then you're scrambling.
Yeah.
I like 24 hours to prepare for whatever it is going to be. So I don't know when I'm drafting yet. I'll randomize it on Wednesday at 8 p.m.
Okay. Well, that is it. We will talk more about your fantasy drive next week. We'll talk some fantasy football, more updates on what's going on around the league. Week 2, we're going to have some football games to talk about, some preseason week 1s. We may be able to do a little bit of report from the rookie quarterbacks, rookie players as well. But, from there, we will just be from the sidelines, and we'll be back next Sunday. So have a great weekend and week. See you guys.
Peace.
Amen.
Put on a suit, drink water. Don't drink and drive. Hey, man, call your mother.
It means nothing. It means nothing.
Nah, they lying to you. It's about the money.
Now you're more fluent.